Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1250B and today's date is April 9th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Trump's Hidden Plan Within a Plan. Now before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Later today, I'm going to be uploading an interview with James Wesley Rawls. And this was supposed to be released on Tuesday, but I think I need to release this a little bit earlier because we talked about all the different scenarios of being prepared and what could happen. And I'm talking about power grid, war, I'm talking about economic collapse and the differences on what could happen. So I thought this was a time where this needs to be out there and people should be listening and people understanding what could happen. So later today, look for it. It should be around 1 p.m., 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm still editing it, so I will put it up there. People who are on the X22 Report email alert system, you'll get the email. If you're a subscriber to YouTube, you should get the email, but if not, just keep checking the channel and you'll see the video up around that time. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, things are changing very, very quickly around the world, and we're going to break down what is going on and talk about all the different news that is coming in. And people are writing me a lot of emails trying to, get information of what is going on, what is being said out there. Is this, really happening? And we see things completely changing. I mean, out in Egypt, we understand there's an explosion out in a church. And just a couple of reports ago, we talked about Egypt and how Russia was bringing in troops. Russia denied it. And we mentioned there might be some type of an event in Egypt. Now, is this a message being sent to Egypt saying, hey, stay away, don't do this? Maybe. We know that North Korea, well, they're being poked by the United States government central bankers, the neocons, the central bank, the deep state. And we have to remember, these are all separate factions, and they're all kind of not working with each other, but kind of working with each other. And we know that the hot button for Trump is North Korea. The hot button for Trump is Iran. And we can see maybe the hot button now is Syria. Now, the U.S. is sending an aircraft carrier towards North Korea in response to recent provocations. So we already see that they're making some moves here. The strike group called Carl Vinson, well, this is the aircraft carrier. It's moving towards Singapore, toward the Korean Peninsula. And we see right now that they're putting all assets into place. Now, are they going to use these assets? We don't know right now. But to move them into place and having them standing by is usually a good indicator. Now, out in Syria, as Trump was explaining how terrible it was for this gas attack, which we know is a complete false flag on how it killed individuals, and I'm going to break that down also. We see that the U.S., their airstrikes in Raqqa, they've killed 20 civilians. But again, the corporate media is not really talking about that. The U.S. is also preparing additional sanctions against Syria. Rex Tillerson and Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross was out there, and they're going to be placing sanctions on Syria. Now, do sanctions really work? No, they don't. They do absolutely nothing. We've seen it in the past, and this really is not going to make a difference. Is it important? Not really. We see already that Iraq, the Prime Minister, al-Abadi, well, in a telephone call with U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, he highlighted the need to end the escalation of the Syrian conflict and conduct an urgent investigation into the suspected chemical weapons attack. Now, there has been no investigation whatsoever. There's been absolutely nothing. It happened. They just went off and said it was Assad. And then Trump fired 59 Tomahawk missiles. I mean, when we look at the pictures, when we look at the evidence, and we look at everything that's been going on, this is the same exact scenario that they used back in 2013. But what we're seeing right now is that things are rapidly changing. Now, when Trump launched the 59 Tomahawk missiles, he said something very interesting. He said that, we're going to stop terrorists of all types. But firing 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria was not targeting terrorists. So that really didn't make sense at all. And when these missiles were fired, we see that the Syrian army, they cleared the capillaries air before the U.S. aggression. So they knew that something was happening. They cleared a lot of their equipment, and they had about 35 to 50 minutes to clear everything. So they were able to scramble everything very, very quickly. The Tomahawk missiles that were fired into Syria, we knew that some of them didn't make it. Some of them might have malfunctioned. We said maybe some of them were shot down. Maybe some of them were jammed. And we're starting to find out, and Syria is saying that some of them were shot down. Some of them malfunctioned. And they showed the wreckage of some of the missiles that actually didn't make it to their targets. Now, out in the Sun and many other corporate media, they're really building this up and trying to make everyone convinced that Assad had chemical weapons. And they showed pictures outside of the air bunkers of all these canisters and stuff. And the headlines read, is this proof Syrian butcher Bashar al-Assad ordered chemical weapons attack on Syrian women and children? And they showed the picture. And of course, when you look at it, you say, oh, wait, are those chemical weapons? Well, it turns out this is fake, phony, and false. The photos that were released, well, they are not chemical weapons. What are they? Well, the hangar that was targeted by the United States declared it targeted no chemical weapons in the missile attack. So right off the bat, they're saying there were no chemical weapons. And when you look and you really look close up at these containers and all the other pieces that are around the hangar, you can see that these containers are really ammunition storage for several types of ammo. Significantly, cluster bombs. It's the RBK 500 cluster bombs, and they're easily identifiable. When you zoom in on these, you can see, and they're clearly marked, AO25RT cluster submunition. So that right off the bat shows that the corporate media is just out there trying to convince everyone that these are chemical weapons, which they are not. We also have reports, and we showed drone footage before, of the base where the runways weren't hit. Now, Trump came out and said we didn't hit the runways because it would be easy to repair, but it would slow down the planes if you did hit the runway, so they couldn't deliver chemical weapons anymore. And again, there were no chemical weapons at this airbase. Actually, the objective of hitting this airbase, what was it? We really don't know at this point. So we already have footage already that planes were already taken off. A lot of the planes were protected. So whatever was set out to be done really wasn't. So you start to think, was this really a hit? What was Trump actually doing? We're already seeing protests right now of individuals around the country where they're protesting no war. So this has already sparked people saying, listen, we don't agree with this. We don't want war. We don't agree with the deep state. We don't agree with what Trump just did. We don't want war. And there are anti-war protests in front of the White House. And it's happening all over the place. Now, back in 2013, the Daily Mail, they were caught deleting an article outlining planned U.S. false flag in Syria. The article title was U.S.-backed plan to launch chemical weapon attack on Syria and blame it on Assad. So if this is what they were doing back in 2013, it's pretty good chance this is what they were doing today. Because as we can see from all the evidence, it shows that, was this really sarin gas? Was there really a gas attack? And what we've learned is the airstrike from the Syrian plane and the chemical attack took place at 2 different times. We also have a Swedish organization, doctors from Swedish Physicians for Human Rights, saying that the white helmets, well, they were actually murdering the children. They didn't die from gas. What did they do? They injected the children with high doses of adrenaline in the heart by a long syringe. And the kids would suffer, and the kids would pass away. And the Swedish Physicians for Human Rights said no children show any symptoms of poisoning from chemical attacks. So here's more evidence that something was wrong here. Remember, the white helmets, They are a paid organizations that work with the terrorists. And it's been proven that the terrorists have chemical weapons. Now, we can see that from all of this, there should have been some type of an investigation before the United States went into Syria. Now, don't get me wrong. The United States government central bankers, they're already in Syria. They've been building up personnel. They've been building up military assets. They're hardening runways. They're flying C-17s in there. They control 2 bases. The French control 1 base that they built inside of Syria, a sovereign country. And when Trump said they were going after terrorists of all kinds, Assad is not a terrorist. Under the UN, he is an elected leader of a sovereign country. So was he talking about Assad, or was he talking about the other terrorists? We don't know. We already see that the Syrian forces, they've shot down a drone or reconnaissance plane flying over the military base of al-Qamishli in northern western Syria. Now, the aircraft flew in, was looking at the situation. They started firing at it, and it flew away. There was no damage. The plane was not taken out. Turkey right now is calling on Russia to stop supporting Assad. So the Turkish foreign minister is out there, and they're telling Putin, step aside. It's time that we go in and remove Assad. Trump already is now out in front of Congress, saying that he's going to take additional actions to further national interest in Syria. So what does this mean? Well, he wrote a letter to Congress, allegedly, stating that there's going to be more coming in Syria. Now, again, Congress is going to have to declare war on Syria. Now, Syria never attacked the United States. Syria never did anything. Now, many people are looking at this situation. Some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't make sense. And we're going to have to see the additional actions of what happens here. Because Trump could be going to Congress trying to say, listen, Congress, you make the decision now. Are we going to war or aren't we going to war? And if Congress says, no, we're not going to war, well, there's nothing he can do. He's off the hook. That could be a scenario. Now, if Congress, we know Congress is filled with a lot of neocons, the Democrats, who absolutely want war. They want war yesterday. So this is what we're going to have to be watching, and this is what we're going to have to be looking at. But in the meantime, we see the deep state behind the scenes working to push this agenda. Mike Cernovich, who broke the Susan Rice unmasking story, said that the New York Times and other news outlets, they were sitting on the story for months because they didn't want to implicate Obama. He is saying that H.R. McMaster's and Petraeus, they've been working behind the scenes to bring ground troops into Syria, about 150,000 American ground troops. We already know that they're planning to separate and balkanize Syria. This has been the plan, and this has been the plan going back many years. We know that Flynn and Bannon, they were removed because they were in the way. They knew that they were going to be completely against this. We're getting reports right now that U.S. forces, they are moving through Jordan into Syria right over the border. And from independent journalist Sarah Abdallah, she's reporting that around 20 U.S. armored vehicles have poured across the Jordanian border into Syria. So we can see already that the deep state, they are moving towards this. They want this to happen. Now, Russia, Iran, they released, and Syria, they released a statement. The statement released in Arabic states that the Allied Operations Room recognizes that the U.S. is supporting the separation of northern Syria and Iraq from their respective states. Point 7 of the statement details how all U.S. military are legitimate targets as they have crossed every red line possible and operate illegally in Syria. It then emphasizes that the Joint Military Operations Room will respond strongly to any aggression and any violation made by the U.S. in Syria. They go on to reiterate their full support of Syrian army to fully liberate every part of the Syria occupied by terrorist forces. It then goes on to state how they will not allow a unipolar world with the United States as the dominant power to continue to impose its will across the globe. And what we're seeing right now is that things are rapidly changing. And we're going to have to look at the situation very, very carefully moving forward. And we're going to have to look at the indicators. Now, all the indicators that we see so far is that the separate factions, the deep state, the neocons, the central banks, they've been moving military assets into position all along. Now, we know that Trump approached Congress. And can Trump just order the military to go in, order the ground troops to go in? Because it would need to be a huge invasion of Syria to separate Syria and to control those separate areas. And this is why they're talking about a huge number of troops. Now, can the president order this? I really don't think so, because I think Congress would go completely crazy over this. And this is why he's approaching Congress right now. And this is the key point, I believe, in regards to how this goes. Because I think what he's trying to do, he's trying to leave the decision with Congress. And like I said before, Congress, they are littered with neocons, with Democrats, and individuals that definitely want war. And he's leaving it with them, so it will be Congress's decision on what we do from this point on. And we can see that he might be getting really bad intel, because a lot of it doesn't make sense, because he's been calling out the corporate media all along about fake news, pointing it out, making sure that everyone realizes that, no, this story is fake, no, this is really happening. And then all of a sudden, he's out there saying that, look, Assad did this, he's responsible. So he might be trying to shift all of this onto Congress and have this go through the proper channels the way it's supposed to. Because, again, he can't just order an attack. I mean, of course he can. Obama did it. The other Bush has done it. Many other presidents have done it. But I think what he's trying to do, and we will see very soon if this is the case, because if he says Congress must vote, Congress must decide for the people, Congress must declare war. Now, if they do declare war, we're off and running. Now, what this means is that the other factions, the deep state, the central banks, they're going to increase the events. They're going to push this to make sure that Congress declares war. So we're going to have to watch this very, very carefully. We're going to have to see how this turns out, because the deep state, the central bankers, the neocons, they are preparing for war. This plan has been laid out a long time ago. And can Trump just stop it? No. He's going to have to leave it up to Congress. He's going to have to leave it up to those who are supposed to make the decision. And here we are today. Why is this all happening so rapidly and so fast? Because the economy is being destroyed right now. The economy is collapsing. They're losing control of the Middle East. They're losing control in Syria. They have no alternative at this point. We knew this was coming. And here we are at this point. So listen, everyone. You all need to be ready. You all need to be prepared, because we can see the writing is on the wall, where we are headed, unless Congress says, no, there is no war. We are not going to war. We're not moving in this direction. We need some type of an investigation. I mean, at this point, this is our only hope. So if there are more events and more things should occur, as we're seeing across the world, we have an aircraft carrier going to North Korea. We have an explosion in Egypt. We have that truck event that occurred in Sweden. Everything is happening at once, and the deep state, the central bankers, the neocons, they're going to up their game. They want Congress to declare war. I'm hoping that Congress thinks, takes a breath, and says, let's investigate first. But we'll have to see what happens. And these are the indicators. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.